I missed that voice because we started on Zoom.
Oh, and now you just like fully don't even record through.
No, so because we started on Zoom, we probably did about maybe a half dozen episodes on Zoom,
Yeah.
and I actually talked about that in one of our episodes. I said to my co-host Richard, I said, I missed that voice. He's like, voice. I'm like, they were the one telling us we're recording.
The Zoom lady.
Yeah,
We love the Zoom
yeah,
lady.
she was awesome,
She's so great. Okay. Welcome to my apartment, Dave.
amazing, love it.
Hey, friends. We are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we're here on an episode in season 3 already. Before we get to this episode, I would really love for you to know what your human design energy type is so that you can follow along with what we're talking about, whether it's an episode with a guest or it's the Fearless Shorts. You're going to go to my website, www.thefearlessprojectltd.com. You're going to input some information and it's going to spit out something that looks a little weird. Yeah, that is called a human design body graph. It's going to tell you 3 important things that today I hope that you go forth into the rest of life, understanding what energy type means, strategy, and authority. And if not, just keep listening to the podcast. I can't wait for you to see what we talk about, what I talk about, and maybe get a laugh or two. So without further ado, I have Dave with me. And Dave is the owner of the Stretch Lab franchise that I work at. And I realized after basically within about 10 minutes of meeting Dave, oh my God, you have a podcast. Oh my God, I have one too. Let's vibe. So here's Dave. Let's hear who you are. I want to know more about who is Dave.
Yeah. Who is Dave? It's a good question. I would say my explanation of who Dave is has changed over my 45 years.
Love it.
Yeah. Dave is somebody who is compassionate, someone who loves seeing other people's growth and who just loves life. Dave is a married man, has 2 dogs, and has wonderful people surrounded by him. I talk about third person. I should say me.
I love talking about myself in
Yeah.
the third person, so this is great.
We own 2 businesses, Stretch Lab, plus a mobility clinic as well. So a multidisciplinary clinic. So that's the work side of it.
Mhm.
The personal side of it, I feel like I'm retired now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Look at you.
I
That's
know.
cool.
I worked a career in law enforcement. Very bureaucratic, very political, very intense, very stressful. I did that for about 25 years.
Mm.
I then decided to make a change in my life for the absolute best.
Yeah.
It's been a whirlwind of energy and meeting people and getting to see people outside of that world.
Mm.
When you're in the world of law enforcement, and anyone who's listening to this or watching this who's in law enforcement can definitely relate, you live in a bubble.
Mm.
You live in a bubble of bureaucracy and politics. You live in a bubble of constant analyzing things. You live a bit on the edge in relation to your heightened sense of awareness. And you live with this mindset of the public, the police.
Mm.
Because of that, you don't have a sense of who humans are.
Mm.
And since I left, I've now become more in touch with humans.
Mm.
And I love that because I've always been a compassionate person, but it's now shown me that there's different types of way of being compassionate to people who are not in that world.
Mhm.
And I'm able to be my true self. And I feel like I've found myself found myself
Yeah,
again.
in
But
air quotes.
yeah, but I've definitely this is what I should have been doing my whole life.
Mm.
I'm happy with my career. I'm happy with what I did. I learned what I learned. I am who I am because of that.
Mhm.
I am better Dave now than I was before.
Yo, what an intro.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's who I am. That's me.
I love it.
Me
And
in a
the
bit of a nutshell.
in a nutshell. And I love that you like started with a very whenever we go into a situation where we meet somebody new, whether it's a party, you're having a job interview for the first time, just a new moment. And people always ask, "What do you do?" And you can see people's energy just immediately drop. About, let's say, 80% of people when you're interacting with somebody new for the first time. I very much myself, in at least my lifespan thus far, of seeing what it's like to learn and meet somebody for the first time. And you ask them who they are, as opposed to just what do you do off the bat, you get such a interesting answer. That answer was, I love it. And it's amazing. For this particular podcast, Dave, I've asked you to come on to talk about life, to talk about fitness, to talk about all the cool things about business, because I'm all of those things as well, but also about human design
Yeah,
and this thing that you literally know nothing about,
I'm excited.
which I was like, this is going to be a health thing, in air quotes, health thing, or just way to enrich Dave's life even more. That I was like, this guy needs to know.
Yeah,
He needs to know.
yeah, yeah.
And so when you were describing yourself, my brain is naturally picking up on certain words to see if what your human design energy type, which I'll get into describing,
Mhm.
and in air quotes, matches the way that you speak about yourself.
Interesting.
Because human design is a description of our energy
Okay.
and how that energy wants to live life. And it is very much an actual description of our DNA, even though it feels very left of center.
Mm,
It feels very woo woo
okay.
or spiritual from the way that a general population of people would look at it, or that maybe somebody who's been in law enforcement their whole life would look at it. I'm painting a very like broad stroke there, but
Right.
to say that it's not everyone's cup of coffee or
Which is
cup of
fair.
tea. Yeah,
Just to add a little thing to this,
go.
since I've joined the wellness industry, I've been exposed to so much woo woo,
Yeah.
and it's been enlightening.
Yeah.
It's been interesting and it's been fun actually.
Cool.
I took it upon myself to, and I do this with everything that I enjoy doing, is I dive into it full head. I don't say no. I
Yeah.
just say yes, yes, yes. I'll do everything. I'll try everything at least once.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a different outlook on the way I'm running my life. But I've been exposed to different types of yoga, different types of workouts, different types of meditation, different types of people who have just opened my eyes to see the broad cross section of our multicultural society.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been interesting
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah.
But the woo woo side of it
Mm-hmm.
intrigues me a bit
Mm-hmm.
because it's a way of thinking
Mm.
and it gives people purpose and it gives people energy and it gives people motive to enjoy their lives
Yeah.
through their own lenses, which is awesome.
100%. I feel like woo woo and the word spirituality gets a bad rap these days now
Yeah,
because we humans always want this greater knowing, this greater purpose of why the fuck are we in this meat suit
right.
and what does it all mean? And we have all of these different ways in which we all have each particular niche of how we understand our purpose.
Mhm.
And human design is just one of those newer modalities. It's only been around since the mid 80s.
Okay.
It wasn't really a thing when you were born, which is fine. We're not like aging Dave fully, even though he said it earlier, but it came around in 1987. However, it has ancient modalities that are woven through in it that have been around literally since humans were on the planet. And somebody decided, hey, I'm going to put these things together. Somehow it made sense. And here we are. And in a time and age and place on our planet where people are clinging to find themselves,
Mm.
their authenticity, to wake up in the morning and be excited is literally what is the only thing that people really want,
Mhm.
actually,
Mhm.
myself included, of realizing the changes that I've made in my life to be sitting on this couch
Right.
with you. of anything right now that we maybe want to go on first before diving into this whole human design thing is I want to know, when did you have your first stretch? I want to know.
Yeah. My first stretch, my first one-on-one assisted stretch.
Yeah.
My first one-on-one assisted stretch was in California,
Cool.
and it actually wasn't even before I decided that I wanted to purchase Stretch Lab.
Mm.
It was after.
Oh,
But that being said, I was in a Stretch Lab. Here's the backstory.
okay.
So I was in California, I was running a business in California,
Mhm.
and I was exploring other business opportunities. One night I came across an ad for a Stretch Lab to be sold privately.
Mm.
So I was like, "What's Stretch Lab?"
I'm
I
going
had
to
no
check it out.
Yeah, I was like, "I have no idea what Stretch Lab is. Sounds pretty cool. The name's pretty, zingy." So I
Yeah.
was like, "Let's go check this out." So,
Okay.
friend of mine, business partner there in the States, I said to him, I said, "Hey, will you come with me to go check out this place called Stretch Lab? I think it's a cool business idea. It sounds cool. I looked at it online. Looks pretty awesome. Let's go check it out." He goes, "Yeah, why not? Let's go book a session."
Let's go get treated and then go see what this thing is.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah. I look it up online, call them. They only had one spot.
Mm.
So it's two of us. And I'm like, "You go, I'll come watch."
Oh,
So that while you're getting stretched,
yeah.
I could then, whoever's there, bombard them with questions about the business.
Need to know everything.
Yeah. So I was like, which hindsight being 2020, I probably shouldn't have done without talking to the owner, but it's like,
A
it's,
small
yeah,
detail.
small details. But so, anyways, fast forward to our session.
Yeah.
We go in, it was a smaller stretch lab. It was really quiet, but it also piqued my interest going into it saying, how good is this place that we can only get one appointment?
Mm.
If you can't get more appointments, what's going on?
Yep.
Later, I learned why. Now I know the difference, but I'm like, this must be great. So we go in, I'm watching him get his stretch. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. The environment was nice. Obviously, you know what Stretch Lab looks like.
My stretch lab, the location I work at, Dave, that you own is beautiful. I love it so
Yeah.
much. And I've never worked in a facility such as that before, as being a stretch therapist pre to working at Stretch Lab. There are windows.
Yeah.
There are lots of benches.
Yeah.
There's so much space.
Yeah.
It's a great lab.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. The formats are all different land in terms of like design, but they all look the same
Yeah.
aesthetically.
They all have the same color. They
That's
got the same
they
portraits, but they're cute.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah. So I went in and I was like, "Oh, this place looks nice." And they were really nice to us and they greeted us. And I feel bad for the front desk sales associate now that I know. uh, because he goes in for a stretch, he's getting stretched, and I was looking at it, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That must feel good from looking at it."
Yeah.
And then I left him and I went to the front desk person and I'm just bombarding her. "What's this? What's that? What do you do?"
I need to know everything. If you
Yeah.
don't know any of the reasons why I'm asking you these millions of questions.
So she tells me a whole bunch of stuff and we leave. And my friend Luis, who I was with,
Yeah.
he rolled out of there like jello. He
Yeah.
was like, that was the best stretch I've ever had in my life. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I was excited. I was like, okay, I got to call the owner, got to figure this out. I want to buy this place. I want to move forward.
Yeah.
Fast forward, we bought the place, not that place. We bought into Stretch Lab.
Got it.
And the reason we did it because that place wasn't doing so well actually at the time.
Got it. Yeah.
I said to my wife at the time, I said, "You know what? Stretch Lab doesn't exist in Canada. Let's just bring it to Canada.
Yeah.
Let's bring it to Toronto. We're from there. Let's bring it there." And she's like, "You're crazy."
I'm so happy you brought it to Canada.
Yeah, right.
Why wasn't it here yet is the full question. What was going to happen eventually?
It just takes everyone asks me that. "Why you?" And I'm like, "Why not?" It
Exactly.
takes just one person to do it.
Yeah.
And no one probably one of the biggest questions I had in the beginning is, "Why you?" Some people were like, "Oh, I don't believe it that you brought it." And I'm like, "Okay, it is what it is, right? I am the one bringing it."
Yeah.
It just took one person to do it.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we brought it. I eventually convinced my wife,
Honey, let's do
Yeah.
this thing.
and she's like, "You're crazy. How do you know it's going to work?" But
Hey.
I had the attitude of, I'm not going to let it fail.
Yeah.
And the mindset of, I'm not going to let this business fail. So we brought it and launched it and huge success.
And here we are. And you have there are 4 locations now in Toronto. You own 2 of them?
Yeah.
2 of them. Yeah.
Yes.
It's only, we know this is the beginning.
Yeah,
There's ones
yeah.
that are opening in greater GTA by December.
Yep.
And your location opened in 2021. The first one did, and then the Dundas was this January.
We opened it was so we bought in 22.
Okay.
We opened our front doors January of 23.
Okay.
Opened up the second one December of 23.
Yo.
Yeah.
Okay. That fast timeline I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. I saw the trajectory ahead of time
Yeah.
and I said, I gotta go open another one because we just
Yeah.
bought in some. So the way franchising usually works is most people buy 3 off the bat.
Oh,
I wasn't willing to take
you
that
were like,
risk.
okay, we're
Yeah.
jumping off the deep end, but not, you know, into the ocean. We're
Right.
we're diving off the deep end into a pool, not the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we bought the one and then it started picking up and I'm like, okay, let's do 2. I feel comfortable now. So we bought the second one.
Yeah.
And then after we bought the second one, that's when a flood of people bought. So now there's
Yeah.
we brought it to Canada. We brought opened the first one. We opened the second one successfully, the first 2 in Canada,
Mm.
and now there's 2 in Calgary, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vancouver, Victoria, and Aurora Newmarket's opening, Oakville's opening, Burlington, Etobicoke, Mississauga. Like it's exploded. So
It's
yeah,
exploded.
it's been great.
So it has happened where for us being CrossFit veterans, we started in 20 I was 2011.
Me too.
You were
Yeah.
yeah. And when all of a sudden there was a CrossFit gym on every corner,
Yeah.
now there's a stretch lab in let's just say every corner, you know?
Well, yeah, it went from, and this was, I was actually talking about this today. It went from when we bought in,
Mhm.
they were opening their 250th location
In the States.
in the States.
Got it.
Since then,
Oh.
there's over 500 worldwide.
What well, it's so funny
Yeah.
story. After this is recorded, I'm chatting with someone in Australia. I said to her, "Oh yeah, I work at a stretch lab." And she's like, "My friend called me the other day and was like, I'm going to my stretch lab appointment." And I was like, I'm just a part of this trend now.
Yeah, it's incredible. They had Japan,
Yeah.
Mexico, which I
Yeah.
went to the one in Mexico,
Cool.
met the owners there.
Yeah.
Australia, UK's coming on board soon.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
and all across states and Canada.
And Canada.
Yeah, being the first is not always the best.
It depends. Yeah. You've got that trial and error moment of
Yeah.
let's see if this succeeds.
Well, yeah, but if we would have failed,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't have it would take it a little longer for someone else to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is when you open a business. You know that. It's a leap of faith, right?
You're saying
You think
I'm
it's gonna work,
yeah.
but you don't know.
You don't know. That uncertainty is basically with us wherever we go in life, but your body just knows.
Mhm.
Okay. I feel like it's like the perfect moment to introduce human design now. I have all of the nuggets that I
Yes.
could need. I've said that it describes our energy. And the cool thing also about human design is that even if we didn't know it, we are actually still living our energy appropriately. Is to the 3 main things I'll talk about as to are the basis of knowing our energy type in human design. And we essentially would be dead if we weren't following what our design is naturally telling us anyways. There are tells as to when I talk about these energy types that our body gives us cues. It gives us a burnout. It gives us a health scare. Something else happens to our partner. Things will start shifting in our life in order to, in air quotes, course correct us. And human design is just a tool to help us now navigate such a ridiculous world to better trust this leap of faith moment where even your wife's like, honey, I don't know. But you're like, no, I have to do this. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And essentially, you're still listening to your body to make that decision, even though, yes, conceptual thought and how it's happening in our brain, but something in your body just knows.
Mhm.
The system to describe that is human design. So there are energy types, and this is where we start. There are 5 energy types in human design. Only 5. To get really spiritual in this one bracket of a sentence, there will be more. This is like the nerdiness of human design that I am up late at night Googling.
Love it.
However, currently there are 5. And every person is one of these 5 on the planet. And we need every single one because we all operate differently. And post this conversation, I know that you are going to try to figure out every single person in your life what energy they are, which is fantastic. It's a part of the rabbit hole. When you know your parents' energy type, your spouse. It's just another way to understand your people better.
Love that.
Side note, I really want to have this as a team training at Stretch Lab. I am telling you this right now because I'll blow everyone's mind.
Yeah.
The most prominent is an energy that's called a generator. And I am a generator.
Mm.
And then the second most prominent type is actually your type, Dave, which is called a manifesting generator. And manifesting generators are the hybrid. They got some mixtures of stuff going on, and I'll get to explaining. Then there's something called a manifester, then a projector, and last but not least, the reflector. To just say generators as a nutshell, because we all have our own vibe. Like when you walk in a room, you can feel energy. You can pick out like, oh, there's something just happened with a conversation over there. I don't want to go over there.
Right.
Every energy type and every person gives off this aura. Generators, we're like minions from Despicable Me. And minions are like, oh, we're so excited all the time.
Right.
That's essentially how we want to be. If you come across somebody that's a generator, that's very frustrated and just complaining about their life, it's an energy that feels very sucking, it'll draw energy even away from the other person that's talking to them. Generators are very as well. When they are in this excited overall state, they're like a kid in a candy store. They just want to tell you the thing that they're most excited about. I can also picture like the Energizer pink bunny. Just when you start to Google things in human design, generators, we are said that we are the workhorses. That's sometimes what generators hate hearing the most. However, I'm sure you've heard the saying, though, that if you're doing something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Right. Maybe how in this point in your life right now, you're like, I'm retired, even though I do this, I do that. Yeah. And that's essentially what a generator wants for their life as well. Is that they get really good. They get masters at one skill, typically that will somehow be brought to them in a very strange, serendipitous way early on in life. And they'll master it throughout their life and it will morph and evolve. And then there's the manifesting generator. So we'll get right into it.
As you're talking, I
Yeah.
don't want to interrupt. I apologize for it.
No, it's okay.
But as you're talking, I'm classifying so many people.
Yeah. See, it's going to change your life that way.
It's so vivid, the image I have of all the people that I could then classify as that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The cool thing also about this as well is that that I mentioned earlier, and that essentially if we weren't living our air quotes, this energy type correctly, we would literally die. There are so many, let's say in air quotes, people unaligned to their actual true essence. But because there's about 70% of the world population that are actual generators, more than not, you're going to come across a generator. Right. In a group of 5, it's probably going to be at least 3 or 4 of them. The majority of the time. When you then realize, and I'll describe other facets because I'll get to also talk about the manifesting generator and the manifestor piece of it. When you meet a manifestor, that's just a manifestor, you'll feel a completely different energy that almost is a little bit repelling. They're an energy that's like literally meant to be the king or the queen of their said community, be this torchbearer, and their energy is actually quite scared that no one will follow them. Which is a whole other moment. So manifesting generator, though, you've got this like excited piece. So initially hearing you speak about who Dave is, watching you light up and get excited about the things that you do, just hearing you talk about your Stretch Lab experience. You literally said, I was so excited. I'm like, of course, there's some generator in Dave. We do have a graph for anybody that ends up watching the video behind Dave and I, just so that he can see a human design graph and what it looks like. These like triangles and squares and things, they represent parts of our body. A manifesting generator and a generator has this square always colored in, which to relate it to a chakra is actually the sacral chakra. It's very much about desire and excitement. That's always constant. And we feed it like a battery, like we feed ourselves. And if we keep doing wellness things that we love, if we keep feeling this pull of, I don't want to be in this place of life anymore, and we follow what the sacral is telling us, that's correct for us. Right. Just in the way that a kid sometimes doesn't know why it wants to go out and play and meet their friend on the sidewalk and then have a good time. No, I'm going to go do this thing. Which, again, helping that energy live the way that it just wants to live.
Mm.
So the manifesting generator and the fact that you have had a completely separate life and career to where you now are in your life is definitely a description in a nutshell of a manifesting generator. They are an energy type that, as a human, are meant to have a life path that has never been lived before, that looks really left of center, that looks like at this age, they do this as a profession. And then all of a sudden they're like, nope, I'm going to go in the other direction and do this. But then maybe there's another point in life they go back to the first thing. It's just this beautiful morphing life that especially in today's society of how people are always like, or it feels like for those that are entrepreneurs as a whole or a business owner at some point is like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Manifesting generators just do it really quickly and efficiently. To also hear that, when was this first time that you had this stretch in California? What year was that?
22.
22. By the end of 23, you have 2 locations. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that's manifesting generator to a T.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that because I was actually just having this talk with someone probably about a month ago about a little trick that I do
Oh.
in life.
Yeah.
And I
Let's
have
hear it.
been doing it for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
It's manifesting,
Yeah.
but it's manifesting before I even commit.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
1,000%.
I will tell people, for example, even before I'm purchased Stretch Lab, I
Mhm.
told people I bought it
Yeah. Yeah.
because then it becomes real to me
Totally.
and it becomes more palatable for me to actually go through with it and do it.
Yep.
Even though it's quote unquote not the truth
Mm-hmm.
per se, it's my truth.
Yeah. Which is the only thing that essentially matters to how we're moving in our day. To me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I highly resonate with that.
It's a way that I can then manifest it to actually happen.
Totally.
If I don't do that for myself,
Mm-hmm.
then I actually the times where I've never done it
Mm-hmm.
or haven't done it
Mm-hmm.
or just did it a little,
Yeah.
those things never happen. But when I learned this about myself,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to then move forward with things like Stretch Lab being the biggest example I could use because
Yeah.
I've done it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But Stretch Lab in itself, I told people I'm buying Stretch Lab, even though before I even gave them money to the company,
Yeah.
I had told people I bought Stretch Lab.
Sweet.
And it was just so that I could put it out there that I'm committed to doing this in my life and I'm going to do it. And then I did it.
Okay. So it's a perfect moment to say this, like the next thing to add to the saying that you're this manifesting generator, the add on to, in air quotes, just generator like myself. But manifesting generators in their chart, when we like use it as a reference in this moment, this square, if anyone's looking at a chart right now, there are 2 triangles at the top, and then there's a square below that. That represents the throat chakra. For a manifesting generator, that is always colored in, or like on this graph, I would say it is defined. It is connected always. In this case, this graph is not, but the one that we have in the video. Your throat will be connected to your desires, to your excitement. And a manifesting generator always has to speak about this is the thing that I'm doing in order to our ways that our body decides. And I'll get to that. But if a manifesting generator isn't speaking about what they want to bring into their life, to just whatever it is, if they're not even talking about what they ate that day, the manifesting generator just has to tell everybody. There's also some other nuances about your graph, Dave, that I was like, of course he has to talk about all of these stories and things that he does because he's a story keeper, because there are actual like things in your graph that say that. I'm not surprised that then the way in which you manifest into life resonates exactly with the fact that you are a manifesting generator, that you legitimately have to speak about it or it doesn't happen. Certain energy types have to go about things in a different way in order for the perfect lined up ways in the ways in which our life moves forwards. So that's manifesting generators in a nutshell. They're excited. They're always doing things. Their life paths may not make sense, but if it's a thing that is meant to happen for them, to purchase a Stretch Lab, it'll happen really fast. And then, cascades them into this next moment of life. When a manifesting generator is ultra frustrated and, the juice out of their generator sacral is drained, they'll get sick, they'll have burnout, something will happen in their life to cause them to not even go into work. I could say a multitude of things that will basically say, stop, you're meant to go in a different direction.
Mm.
Now, when you left law enforcement, was there a moment where it was like, stop? Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing I've repeatedly said to every employee that I gets to work with me,
Mm.
and I get to work with them, and I've pulled them aside and I've said this one statement, and I was so funny you say this because I just said it yesterday to somebody.
Yeah.
I say, if there's any time in your career working with us that you wake up and sit on the edge of your bed and you say, I am not going to work today. I hate that place.
Hmm.
Pick up your phone, dial me, and let's talk. I've said that to every single employee.
Hmm.
If I haven't said it, I've relayed it through our great management staff, but it's something that I went through
Hmm.
in my career, and it's one of the worst feelings out there.
Yeah.
The worst feeling is to wake up in the morning, sit on your edge of your bed, and say to yourself, I don't want to be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be living this life. I don't want to be going to this job. I don't want to be seeing those people. It's a horrible feeling.
Hmm.
And I don't want anyone to ever feel that gets that I get to work with.
Hmm.
It's one thing that I live by because I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. I don't want to talk bad about my career,
No,
but I've
it was,
had those moments.
it's time and its place.
Yeah.
Literally, in the way that you said, like at the beginning, you're like, I am who I am because I had this chapter.
Yeah.
Manifesting generators have chapters that are all meant to be there,
Yeah.
that are to give you this life experience, that are to give you this path that, again, never been lived before, that you probably wouldn't be owning a stretch lab if you hadn't have had that chapter in life, right?
So true.
As much as it was also the ways in which you look at a difficult way of a chapter and lessons
Mm.
to be learned, but that's just life anyways.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
I like think about all of mine where I'm like, oh yeah, this was really hard. And then now I'm here and then it's hard again. So,
Yeah.
chapters. So we've talked about like what it is to be a manifesting generator. I also like to just give manifesting generators the idea and that there is no box for them.
Mm.
Life is meant to be, you do this, you go to school, you do that. The ways in which society says life is meant to happen for a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then the manifesting generator just throws a good old Miley Cyrus wrecking ball at it and is like, fuck it. Let's just do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my best friend is a manifesting generator who I mentioned works at Club Pilates.
Mhm.
She once worked in a bank. She's a contemporary dance artist. She's a dog mom. Her and her husband have crazy trips out west. And then now they basically have a Pilates studio in their house. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
My official last day in law enforcement was 21. June
What? Dave, you're
2020.
blowing my mind on the timeline here with the quickness of manifesting generator for you.
I'll blow your mind a little more right now.
Amazing.
So from 2021 till
Yeah.
2022, I did 3 different careers. And I became a college professor,
Okay.
and
So Sagittarius. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. You're the teachers. Sagittarius are the teachers. Cool.
I taught at CDI college, law
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah.
Then I got involved with a cleaning company in California,
Cool.
became a certified biotechnician
Yeah.
and,
Sounds right.
a janitor,
Yeah. Cool.
learnt about business,
Yeah.
then got into the wellness industry.
Yeah.
So I've had law enforcement, those 2 careers, and now this.
Yeah.
Started a podcast and have learned so much since then.
Yeah.
Opened up brick and mortar businesses. It's just incredible changes from then to now. I went from reading 1 book a year to now reading 1 a month.
Yeah.
Uh,
What are you on right now as like a side note?
Andy Frisella wrote a book,
Okay.
whether people know him or not. He's a mindset kind of guy, a bit leaning to the right, so he doesn't appeal to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote a book on mental toughness.
Mm,
So I'm reading that right now. The
cool.
book I read just before that was Buying Back Your Time by Dan Martell,
Mm,
Canadian entrepreneur from Alberta.
mm-hmm.
2 great books so far.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I enjoy reading about people's lives. I enjoy reading about people's journeys and little tidbits on how to change your life for the better. I like to take little tidbits out of all the books that I'm reading, grab a little bit here, grab a little bit of there, put it into my life,
Mhm.
give it to other people,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Okay, this is a perfect moment to go into a specific about Dave. I happen to have Dave's human design graph, his actual graph
Mm,
on my phone right now. There's so many things that we could say. However, the cool thing about human design and it describing our energy, DNA is energy, that is our actual physical cells, how they move. And human design has descriptions for the very poetic way about talking about DNA.
mm,
Dave, you can see that there are 64 numbers
mm.
on this graph. There's a reason for that. Human design has a base of astrology, our chakra systems, so relating to these triangles and squares, and then the I Ching and the Kabbalah,
Okay.
ritualistic texts of Chinese and Jewish origin.
Right.
And so the 64 numbers are represented of the 64 gates of the I Ching.
Okay.
When I said I Ching, you're like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
I could tell. So, out of the reason why I asked you for your birth time is because we will have different numbers due to our different birthday. So that's why I asked you that question.
Mm,
This is legitimate science for me.
yeah.
So, of you picking up like little stories here and there, you actually have one in your graph that's called listening and collecting stories.
Uh,
You have one that's called life's information keeper.
mm,
And that one's very related to this like listening and collecting stories one. However, it like thrives on taking the tidbits that you know were important for you, as you just described, and relay them to someone else in a way that, to say, protects the like the initial story of how you got said information, this keeper of information, but then gives your own spin on it.
you say that.
It's it's doesn't lie. This is the crazy part. But when I talk to people that I happen to have this gift as well, it's number 35. It comes out of the throat. It's up there. When I talk to people that have 35, if they are in some form of where they really connect with humans, whether they have a podcast, whether they're a business owner, they're just giving a service, like for me being the stretch therapist in this example. Legit, I know in the way in which how I'm saying random shit about my life is helping my client. Knowing that I have this sometimes helps me less judge myself for why I talk about certain things in a session.
Mhm.
In that the way that I could be told, oh, Fran, don't get too personal with your clients. But then that's not me being authentic and helping my clients in the way that I know I need to help them.
Right.
You getting more excited about how you collect knowledge in your life and relaying it. Let's hear the story that I
Yeah.
like saw pop into your head.
I mentor people as well.
Mm,
And I probably am mentoring right now about 10, 12 people.
yo,
I don't charge for it. I just mentor them. A lot of them are employees, management side of it,
mm,
but also other business owners and other people that I know within the wellness industry who have asked to be mentored into business. I have a list of about 20 people who I reach out to on a weekly basis, and I send them various thoughts.
cool.
And these are in like, I'll show you
Yeah.
one of them, for example.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll come just off the top of my head. Sometimes it will come because I read something that was really impactful to me. So I'll send something like this,
Cool.
uh, my Thursday thoughts.
Oh, let's hear.
So it would be of the day of the week that
Yeah.
I
You
come up with
send
it.
it.
Sometimes it's Monday or Tuesday, whichever day, and I
Yeah.
just send it to all of them.
Okay. If you feel comfortable sharing, what was the most recent one? Whether it's today, last week, I feel like it's a candid moment.
Yeah, definitely. Show this. So this was this past Friday.
Okay.
So my Friday thought, you are the key. You have always been and always will be the driving force behind your successes and setbacks. Nearly everything, whether positive or negative, can be traced back to the decisions you have made that led you to where you are today. Acknowledge this, an undeniable truth, and it will reshape your life. If you seek better results, begin by making better choices. It's as straightforward as that.
Hmm. Yeah. Mic drop. Cool.
So it's things that I've read, things that little tidbits that I've heard,
Yeah.
and then just putting my own thoughts to it and send it ends up hitting people at certain times in their lives. And the messages I get back is, I can't believe you sent that today. This is exactly what I needed. Or I was just talking about that yesterday and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That tidbit, yeah, it hit home.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'm like, Dave needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
Why do I do this thing? If it was a random thought in my head, oh, it's literally me. It's my description of me
Yeah.
kind of laid out, but I already do it. We're going to move on to the
Yes.
next thing. We learn energy type. That's the first thing. We see if it resonates. Then, when I talk to somebody about their human design, there are two things besides the energy type that help us how our energy actually operates out in the big world of life. So the first thing's called strategy. And that's how literally our body walking out this door, interacting with different things in my apartment is, I'm trying not to use a particular word in this moment, is how it wants to pick up a cup, why it picks up the coffee cup as opposed to the water glass.
Mm.
Each of the 5 energy types have a different strategy. Now, generators and manifesting generators are very similar. We essentially have the same one, but there are nuances because the manifesting generator is a very different energy type from the generator. But our strategy is called responding. My favorite analogy to describe this, because I'm all about analogies, is that life is a buffet. And when we walk up to an actual buffet, we see all of the options. We see salad, we see meat counter, everything. For some reason, our body is saying, hey, turn this left first.
Mm.
This is where you're supposed to go, or eat the salad first today.
Mhm.
And being presented stretch lab. Okay, I need to check this thing out. Okay, there's only one appointment available. Okay, each step was unfolding, and your brain and your body is like, this is how I'm going to next do this thing. But you didn't know you were going to purchase the stretch lab until you were in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, the thing about the way that our energy is operating out there is for the manifesting generator, it doesn't know what it wants until it's in front of it, until it's at the buffet table looking at the
Mm.
options. I mean, I do not like the word hate. It is very strong, but I'm using it in the context of just saying this is that I hated the question when people would ask me in younger adult life, like 18, 19, what do you want to do?
Mm.
I don't know. It's
Right.
an open ended question. And that's what manifesting generators dislike the most. That's not a definitive salad with shrimp and XYZ on it. That's a whole buffet, and I don't know what to choose from.
Right.
So we know when it's in front of us. So besides even Stretch Lab, can you think of moments where you're like, oh, I don't know what this is going to do? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, because it's in front of me now, I know. Yeah.
100%. I didn't know I wanted to be in law enforcement till 5th grade
Cool.
when Officer Mike
Uh-huh.
came to my elementary school
Oh, yeah.
and stood in front of us to talk about saying no to drugs.
Yeah.
And I was enamored.
Cool.
I was like, look at this uniform. Look at
Mm.
this guy. Look how presentable he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do for my life.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. I didn't know that I was supposed to go to the University of Winnipeg until I'd exhausted all of my options for post-secondary. I auditioned to college and university here for dance schools in Ontario. I went to Juilliard in the States. I just didn't get past a certain point in the audition process is really big. Then all of a sudden it felt like last resort. Okay, I'm going to send my video off to the University of Winnipeg and the School of Contemporary Dancers. They got back to me in 2 seconds and I was like, okay. I don't like any of these other things. And I've been to Winnipeg once before. I danced there like a long time ago for a competition. I'll be living away from home. I've been doing that for forever anyways. So let's do that. Was the right decision. Yeah. But I didn't know until I knew.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Until I was presented with the option.
Mm.
Do you dislike the question? I'll be very specific with asking it in this way. Honey, what do you want for dinner?
I usually ask
Yeah.
because I don't want to make the decision on what to do for dinner.
Yeah.
Whereas Natalie, I'll say to her, "What do you want for dinner? Just tell me what you want and I'll make it."
I love how then you
Yeah,
put in some like descriptive things.
yeah,
Again, like this open-ended question to a manifesting generator, it just frustrates the fuck out of us because we want the menu where we see tacos
yeah,
or salad that night or whatever, or for then somebody to say, I'll make something, just tell me. If you figure it out, I'll do it, is the give and take
yeah,
of how we come to the decision.
yeah. I also love cooking.
Yeah,
For me, it's you tell me what, and
I'll
I'll put
figure it
dough
out.
on it, and I'll
Yeah.
make it beautiful and tasty and amazing, and I'll put my spin on it, and you'll probably tell me make this, but I'll actually just adapt.
Amazing. Okay. I love how strategy,
Yeah.
this responding resonates for you. Third piece is authority. And authority is now coming down to the decision aspect.
Mm,
And yes, there are ways in which we know our brain is logically thinking about past experience or I have X dollars in the bank. All of these strategies, to say strategy here, of life as a human. However, when it comes down to the ultimate, when we do not know why, we're like, I just know I have to open a stretch lab and nobody else gets why.
mm,
There is a decision mechanism in your body, Dave, that's making decisions for you. You have what is called emotional authority. Now, I get really into the fact of talking about emotions and decision making these days because of the way in which, let's just put a blanket around it, self help, motivational world of how humans have hacked the system of doing life and succeeding in the ways in which different humans equate success. And that they'll say, oh, don't make decisions based on your emotions. Or that is my read as a blanket statement.
mhm,
And that we need to have some logistics, we need to have some backing, we need to know all of these pieces in order for something to succeed. But then sometimes, even if we know all the things, sometimes things just actually don't succeed for whatever weird reason.
right.
But emotional authority, I'm pretty sure the percentage of emotional authority is somewhere at least 60 to 70% of the population.
Mm,
There's a lot of people.
yeah,
Emotional authority is a human that they get presented with something, in this case, manifesting generator. The manifesting generator is going to get excited. It's going to elicit some sort of emotional response from something in their past, or they just can't really explain it. But in the moment, the decision does not necessarily have to be made. You can have that night to sleep on it. You can have that, I'm trying to pre manifest this prior to actually it happening. That's the way your body wants you to decide. So the kind of like bigger facets of the essences of our life, of these relationships we get into, whether it's romantic, business, whatever, the emotional authority can take their time. It doesn't have to be this kind of gut, weird, momentary response.
mm,
Whereas, just to describe a different one in this moment,
mhm,
myself, I'm actually what is just called gut authority. I am a spur of the moment, something new's in front of me, I'm going to respond to it and just go with it. Anytime I have done that without trying to let my emotions get in the way and listen to the no, I actually shouldn't buy this right now or whatever, if it's not fully making me excited, then I'm supposed to not do that thing, in air quotes.
God.
So, talking about saying emotions and
Mhm.
those being involved for your life decisions, does that feel resonant for you?
So, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I definitely have the ability to stop myself from making decisions immediately.
Mm.
There's been a couple times where I've done that, and I've regretted it.
Ah,
You've said something,
yeah,
purchased something
yeah.
without doing the research, and that's to me what I love doing is the research aspect of
Mm.
something. Whatever I'm going to do, whether it's I think this goes back to I'm now learning it's part of me, but I always attribute it to my inquisitive nature of law enforcement
Mm.
that I will investigate something to the nth degree before I go do it. So that I now know more, for example, like purchasing a car. I will know more than the sales associate,
Mhm.
and I'll make it my job to know more so that when I go in and ask them the questions, I already know the answers,
Yeah.
but I'm testing them.
Yeah, that's such a Sagittarius thing to do too. They're so blunt. It's great.
Yeah. So I have the ability to stop and not make those rash decisions.
Okay. Yeah. The
Yeah.
emotional, it's not supposed to, in air quotes.
Right.
It is drawing this intel so that they come to what feels like for them a
Mhm.
neutral emotional
Yeah.
place, but that they still feel this like sacral excitement of,
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes me feel so good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
If people just knew that
Yeah.
about their human design, they would feel that much more empowered of, this is why I left this job. This is why I did this thing. This is why XYZ to any facet of our life. It
Mhm.
can be applied to anything.
Mhm.
And now we get really nerdy for people that do this for a living. And I help people with their diet, with their exercise routine,
Mhm.
with why certain people, work out in the morning better than others, and all of these other like bigger what if questions that,
Mhm.
yes, science answers. But then you get to a certain point, for at least for me in my health and fitness career, where when you count macros, I had some success.
Mm.
But I had more success following no plan and actually changing my life to, be doing the things that made me excited as a generator
Mm.
and actually somehow intuitively eating the way that legitimately my human design says that I'm supposed to eat. And I got shredded as fuck and actually saw an 8-pack and was like, what?
Yeah.
I was so fucking confused.
Yeah.
So human design has the crazy, like extra little nuggets of, this is why you do it this way.
Love that.
Yeah, that the world is still like, I don't know if I can really believe it yet until it's been tested enough. It's still in this, there's a certain people that are on board kind of phase, just like, CrossFit being where it was and then to where
Right.
it is now, or Stretch Lab where it was before and where it is now, that I'm just trying to blow it up as much as
Yeah.
possible.
I feel like I've always been the person who always took the understanding, and no one's been able to give me any other explanation. But I've always said to myself, everything that I've been doing through life has happened for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know the reasons until later in life. I don't know the reasons. I now being 45, I'm able to look back and say, okay, now I know the reasons for those things.
Yeah.
I don't know the reasons for certain things that's happened in the short little time,
Mhm.
but I always look back and no one can, everyone who have ever had discussion, like philosophical discussions about life, no one's been able to say to me, oh, no, no, this is why you did what you did until this moment, actually.
I'm
So,
totally giving
so
myself a self
yeah,
five.
you're the, I will give you a high five. You're the first person who's ever said to me a different story of why things happen in my life,
Mhm,
giving me an explanation for it. Because
mhm,
up to this point, like I said, it was just for me to say, it's happened for a reason.
mhm.
Things, tragedy, heartache, sadness, happiness, experiences, best of times, worst of times. But now
There's
seeing
this
just
like weird system that doesn't it in I am such a I stretch people. I understand a body and
right.
the ways in which science works.
Mm.
And then there's this cool thing called human design that encompasses our DNA and science and then gives us all of this purpose that we're like, how does this get it right?
Mm,
It's kind of weird,
yeah.
but yet has been so intriguing for I've only known about it since January of
Okay.
2022.
Okay.
Just so you know my timeline on
Yeah.
this. So it's only been about a 2-year rabbit hole, but basically gave me the moment as to just like yourself realizing that all of these different things I've experienced. And I can't wait to give you an actual reading now, Dave, because I
Mhm,
will post
mhm.
this podcast and you'll be blown even more. And I feel like I'll finish on this one in human design, where the sun is when we are born. So you being a Sagittarius, I'm a Leo. There is a number of these 64 that is our most prominent energy. And I'll describe yours another time. We'll get deep about it. But I'll describe mine right now because it'll resonate really deeply with what you just said. Mine is number 29. And 29 is, I've looked at it in so many different Googling books and stuff. And the best description that I found of it was in a book that I feel like you're probably going to go down the rabbit hole on. It's called The Gene Keys. And it's a textbook that's this big.
Mm,
It describes 29 as wholehearted. And I dive into everything I do with my whole heart. I've always said I'm just this all or nothing person. When I'm not quite sure what to do, I stress myself out to the 10th degree
Mhm.
because I want to be this generator that's helping all of these people and doing all of these things because that's how like I feel good by just by
Mhm.
doing stuff. The moment that I read that wholeheartedness, I have written countless statements about who I am and why I asked you that
Mm.
question at the beginning of who I am, what I stand for, pre to knowing human design, as to in my business and just evolution of how I work with people. The more that we understand our core values,
Mm.
the more that you will draw in the right energies of who you are, the people that you're meant to work with as clients.
Mm.
I kid you not. I remember in 2019 of writing out core values for like the 10 millionth time. One of my top few was wholehearted.
Mm.
Well, before I knew what that was,
Yeah.
but our energy doesn't lie.
Yeah. I love that.
It's kind of crazy. Dave, this is the best.
Yeah.
And
Great.
you learned about human design
Oh, yeah.
today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. And I am so privileged to work at your facility, just so
Oh,
you know.
I'm privileged to have you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more on our end than yours. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to leave you with a reframe as to how to look at yourself with a little more fearlessness. Once upon a time, I did a meditation. This was a few years ago. Coming out of this meditation, something was very clear from my body. My body told me to fear itself less. You do not have to be afraid of the intuition that your body is speaking to you. You can fear yourself less. You can love yourself more. And I promise you that life is going to show you the rest.